Chosen one, anchor your spirit to what I am about to say right now. That quiet unease you have been carrying, the one you cannot explain to anyone around you, stop pushing it down. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. He knows what you carry, and he knows what happens when you finally stop apologizing for it. It all ends now. The shrinking, the second-guessing, the instinct to dim yourself so the room stays comfortable. But hear this clearly, it is not ending because circumstances finally aligned. It is ending because of what you have already been doing, even when you did not realize it was working. Think back to that moment this week when you walked into a room and something shifted. Maybe you did not say a word. Maybe you almost left early because you felt out of place. But you stayed. You did not know it then, but that decision to stay, to show up fully in your own skin without performing, without pretending, that was not small. That was seismic. That moment rewrote the atmosphere around you. You did not shrink your destiny. You announced it. You did not stumble onto this message. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment, scheduled before the foundations of the earth, because heaven needed you to hear this verdict before another hour passed. You are standing at a threshold. Stay until the very last second of this message. In the next few minutes, I am going to reveal exactly what the frequency you carry actually is, and why the enemy is terrified of it. I am going to walk you through the specific moment this week where you activated something you cannot take back. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals this new frequency in place, so nothing and no one can talk you back into silence. Do not click away. Your future self is standing on the other side of this message, waiting. If you leave now, you leave before the verdict is read. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere around you has not been neutral. It has been charged, strange, loaded with a pressure you cannot quite name. Maybe you were lying in bed this week, staring at the ceiling at 3:0 inches the morning, not anxious exactly, but awake in a way that felt deliberate, like something in you was listening for something. Or maybe you were sitting with people who love you and still felt completely alone, not because you were rejected, but because something in you has outgrown the frequency of that room, and you did not know how to say it without sounding arrogant. You feel it. There is something stirring in you that does not match your current surroundings, and instead of excitement, it has produced a particular kind of loneliness. Like you have been handed something and told to carry it in a world that cannot see what you are holding. And in that loneliness, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. Listen to your thoughts this week. He has been telling you that the distance you feel from others is evidence of pride. He has been replaying that moment when someone went quiet after you spoke. That moment when your presence changed the energy of a room and someone looked uncomfortable. He has been telling you that your frequency is a problem, that you are too much, that you should tone it down, shrink it, tuck it away so relationships stay easy and rooms stay calm. He has been telling you that what you carry is a burden to others. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. 1 Peter 2-9 says, "You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." Listen to that word, peculiar, not palatable, not convenient, not easy to categorize. Peculiar. You were never supposed to blend in. The discomfort others feel in your presence is not proof that you are doing something wrong. It is proof that you are carrying something real. You are not too much. You are the right amount, and darkness has always been allergic to light. The loneliness you feel is not rejection, it is separation, and separation always precedes assignment. The heaviness is not the weight of something going wrong, it is the weight of something being finalized. It is the sensation of a frequency being locked in, calibrated, made permanent before heaven releases you into the next chapter. You think the silence around you this week was abandonment. You think the strange stirring in your chest is confusion. But let me reframe your reality right now. That is not confusion, that is activation. And the life that matches what you carry is no longer waiting. It is already moving toward you. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It also comes with the full audio book, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God. And for those called to speak His truth, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now, let's go deeper, because what you just felt wasn't random. That stirring in your chest, that quiet recognition settling somewhere beneath your ribs, that's not emotion. That's not sentiment or the residue of a moving piece of music. That's resonance, and resonance is something altogether different from feeling. Resonance is how the divine communicates with something it already placed inside you before you were born, before your mother held you, before your name was spoken over you for the first time in this world. Resonance is recognition between two things that share the same original frequency. Like a tuning fork held next to a string that was crafted to match it, there is a vibration that begins not because something new was introduced, but because something ancient was remembered. The question isn't whether you carry a frequency. You do. You have always carried it. The question that deserves your honest and courageous answer today is this: why have you been suppressing it? And more importantly, what has convinced you that the thing God placed in you before the foundation of the earth is something you should keep hidden? Keep quiet, keep small. Here's what most people never discover, and it is one of the most heartbreaking truths of the spiritual life. They spend years, sometimes decades, asking God why their life feels so heavy, so slow, so resistant. They pray, they fast, they seek with genuine desperation. They fill journals with petitions and altars with tears, and yet the weight doesn't lift. The breakthrough doesn't come, the door doesn't open, and slowly, quietly, a conclusion forms in the depths of their heart that maybe God isn't listening, or maybe they aren't worthy enough, or maybe the promises in Scripture were written for someone else. But here is what heaven wants you to understand. With every cell in your body, the weight isn't lifting, not because God isn't answering, but because the frequency they're broadcasting doesn't match the life they're praying for. You cannot speak faith in the morning with lifted hands and a sincere heart, and then spend the afternoon rehearsing every fear, replaying every failure, and narrating a story of limitation and lack, and expect heaven to respond to only half of what you're transmitting. The signal has to be whole. It has to be consistent. It has to carry the same message in the quiet moments as it does in the public ones, in the private moments of your thought life, as much as in the declarations you make out loud. A radio tower that broadcasts two frequencies simultaneously produces interference, not clarity. And interference is not a signal that heaven can work with. Think about what happened when Jesus stood at the tomb of Lazarus. Meditate on that scene with fresh eyes, because it carries something most sermons never extract from it. He didn't walk up to that tomb uncertain. He didn't arrive with the trembling, conditional hope of someone who wasn't sure what would happen. He didn't look at the stone covering the entrance and feel what the mourners felt, that heavy, immovable finality of death and loss. Before he ever spoke a word, before the command that would echo through eternity was released from his lips, something in the atmosphere had already begun to shift. The people around him felt it. Mary, who had fallen at his feet weeping, felt something change before the miracle was visible. Even grief itself, that suffocating, all-consuming weight that had filled that garden, paused. It stepped back. Because something greater had entered the space. That's not coincidence. That's not the sentimental detail of a story being told for emotional effect. That's frequency preceding declaration. Jesus didn't just speak life into Lazarus. He carried life there first. He walked toward that tomb as the resurrection and the life, not as someone hoping to perform one. He was the frequency before he was the voice. And the miracle didn't respond to his words in isolation. The miracle responded to what he brought before he ever opened his mouth. The atmosphere read him before he spoke, and it yielded to what it recognized. This is where it goes deeper than most teachers take it, and I need you to let this land fully before we move forward. You have been waiting for a breakthrough to change how you feel. You have been waiting for the external shift, the open door, the financial change, the relationship restoration, the health report, the recognized gift to be the thing that finally realigns your spirit and elevates your frequency. But the breakthrough is waiting for you to change what you carry. The sequence is reversed from what you've been taught. Transformation doesn't follow your circumstances. Transformation follows your frequency. And until that reorder happens at the deepest level of your spirit, until you are willing to carry the frequency of the answered prayer before the answer has manifested in the natural, you will keep arriving at divine appointments carrying the wrong signal. You'll keep standing at the threshold of what God prepared and wondering why the door feels sealed, not realizing that doors don't open for your desperation. They open for your alignment. But here's what's coming up in just a moment that will challenge everything you've believed about why you've been delayed, and it may be the most important thing you hear today. Stay with me, because this is not a message designed to make you feel good and then send you back to the same patterns. This is a message designed to interrupt a cycle that may have been operating in your life for years, quietly robbing you of the very destiny that God wrote for you before time began. Because first, before we get to the disruption, we have to talk about what's been draining you. Not who, though that conversation matters too. What? There are environments, agreements, thought systems, and invisible soul ties that function like open tabs on a device running persistently in the background, consuming your spiritual energy, drawing from your reserves without your conscious awareness or your conscious permission. You feel this drain not as a dramatic assault, but as a slow, steady depletion. You feel it as exhaustion you can't explain after a full night of rest, as creativity that ignites with genuine fire and then collapses before completion, like a flame that rises and then dies before it ever becomes a blaze, as a spiritual hunger that never quite gets satisfied, a reaching that never quite arrives. As a conviction in your heart that you were made for something significant, paired with an inability to move toward it that makes no logical sense. It's not weakness. It's not a character flaw. It's not evidence that you were wrong about your calling. It's leakage. And leakage is one of the most insidious forces operating against the people of God, precisely because it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come in like a thief who breaks a window. It seeps. It erodes. It slowly empties what God has been filling, and it does it so gradually that by the time you notice, you can't even remember what full felt like. The prophet Elijah understood this in a way that almost never gets preached with the depth it deserves, and I want to sit here for a moment because this passage carries something essential for every person carrying a high-frequency calling. After his greatest victory on Mount Carmel, after he called down fire from heaven in one of the most dramatic demonstrations of divine power in all of Scripture, after he stood alone against 450 prophets of Baal and watched every false altar fall silent while the God of Israel answered with consuming fire, after an entire nation fell on their faces and returned to the living God, Elijah ran. He didn't celebrate. He didn't rest in the victory. He fled into the wilderness, collapsed under a juniper tree, and asked God to take his life. This is a man who had just operated in one of the most explosive frequencies of divine power ever recorded in human history. And he was not just tired, he was shattered. He was hemorrhaging energetically, spiritually, emotionally. Every reserve was empty. And what is extraordinary, what is utterly unlike what we might expect from the God who had just displayed his power so dramatically through this man, is that God didn't rebuke him. God didn't say, "Get up, you've seen what I can do. How can you doubt me now?" God fed him. Twice, an angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." Heaven understood something in that moment that we desperately need to recover in this generation, that carrying a high frequency costs something profound. It costs something that must be replenished intentionally, consistently, and without shame. And if you don't know how to replenish, if you haven't built the spiritual disciplines and the protective boundaries that allow restoration to happen, even the most anointed person on the planet will collapse under the weight of their own calling. The gift without replenishment becomes a burden. The assignment without rest becomes a cage. So the first thing you have to do, and I want you to hear this not as a practical step but as a spiritual reckoning, a moment of honest self-examination before God, is identify what has been accessing your frequency without your permission. This requires the kind of ruthless honesty that many people avoid because the answers are sometimes uncomfortable. Who speaks into your life regularly and consistently leaves you diminished, second-guessing yourself, smaller than when the conversation began? What daily habits are quietly pulling you into a low-signal state, making it harder to hear the voice of God clearly, harder to sustain the faith posture that your calling demands? What fears have you been entertaining so long, rehearsing so regularly, that they have stopped feeling like fears and started feeling like wisdom, like discernment, like realism, when in truth they are simply companions you've grown too accustomed to releasing? These are not just life questions to explore in a counselor's office or a journaling session. These are frequency diagnostics. They reveal where the leakage is happening. And until you seal those leaks, until you revoke the access that certain environments, agreements, voices, and thought patterns have been given to your spiritual signal, you cannot broadcast what you've allowed to be continuously stolen. And this leads directly into something that the enemy has been counting on you to miss, something that is foundational to understanding why your gifts have not yet produced what they were designed to produce. He is not afraid of your potential. Let that settle into your bones. The enemy is not afraid of what you could do, what you might become, what gifts you carry in latent form. A room full of unlit candles poses no threat to the darkness. Potential without activation is invisible to the kingdom of darkness. What the enemy is terrified of, what causes a disruption in the assignment sent against you, is your alignment. Because a gifted person who is misaligned is the safest thing in the world to the kingdom of darkness. They can be observed, managed, even used as a cautionary tale. Look at all that gifting producing nothing. But a person who has locked into their divine frequency, who has done the internal work of aligning their thoughts with what God says, their words with what heaven declared, their inner life with the assignment they were created to carry, their time and energy and relationships with the signal they were born to broadcast, that person becomes something the kingdom of darkness cannot easily neutralize. That person becomes a walking disruption to every stronghold in their environment. Their very presence begins to shift atmospheres, not because of what they say or do in those moments, but because of what they carry before they ever open their mouth. Daniel didn't just have spiritual gifts. Daniel had alignment, and that distinction is everything. He was transported into the most spiritually hostile environment imaginable, a foreign empire built on the worship of false gods, a culture designed to systematically erase the identity and the signal of the people of God. They changed his name, they changed his diet, they changed his education. They surrounded him with an entirely different frequency, a Babylonian signal that was constantly broadcasting a different message about who held power and what reality looked like. And yet Daniel prayed 3 times a day, not as a religious obligation, not as a duty he performed to maintain appearances or check a spiritual box. He prayed 3 times a day as a frequency calibration, as a deliberate, consistent, non-negotiable act of returning to the source, resetting his signal, realigning with the original installation, refusing to allow the Babylonian environment to reprogram what God had placed in him. And the fruit of that consistency was extraordinary. Daniel could interpret what no one else could perceive. He could stand in spaces and before powers that destroyed other men and remain unshaken. He could carry divine revelation in an environment saturated with counterfeit spirituality and still hear the voice of God with pristine clarity. Not because he was superhuman, not because he was without fear or struggle, but because he was consistently tuned. Day after day, 3 times a day, he returned to the frequency, and the frequency, over time, became unassailable. Coming up, the hidden thing you've been calling humility that is actually one of the most dangerous things blocking your breakthrough. This is not a comfortable truth, but it is a necessary one. Don't turn away now, because what comes next may be the very thing that breaks the pattern that has had you cycling in the same place for longer than you realize. Because most people who carry a genuine, God-given calling have also, often without realizing it, developed a spiritual reflex that has been conditioned into them through years of misunderstanding, religious shame, and fear of human rejection. It is a reflex that looks remarkably like holiness from the outside. It looks like meekness. It looks like groundedness. But from the inside, and from heaven's perspective, it is quietly devastating. They shrink. When the gifts begins to stir and the calling begins to press forward, they instinctively pull back. They minimize what God said about them with disclaimers and qualifications. They preface every demonstration of their gift with an apology. Well, I'm not sure about this. I might be wrong. Don't hold me to this. I'm still learning. They wait, sometimes for years and decades, to be chosen and validated and released by people who were never authorized to open what God already opened. And they call this pattern humility. They wear it like a virtue. But true humility is not the reduction of what God placed in you. It is not the shrinking of a divine gift because you are afraid of what others will think or afraid of what pride might do if you step forward. True humility is the accurate acknowledgement of who placed the gift there and the courageous decision to steward it fully, to offer it completely, precisely because you know it didn't originate with you and therefore you have no right to withhold it. Moses stood at the burning bush and told God he couldn't speak. He was articulate enough to construct an entire argument for why he was not equipped for the assignment. And God's response, if we read it honestly, was not tender compassion. It was the frustration of a creator whose creation was contradicting the blueprint. Because Moses wasn't being humble in that moment, he was disagreeing with the assessment of the one who formed his mouth, who knit together every neural pathway that would process and produce language, who had already seen every word Moses would ever speak and called them sufficient. Moses was not protecting himself from pride. He was protecting himself from the weight of the calling, and God saw through it immediately. When you downplay your frequency, when you silence your voice before it has a chance to carry what heaven placed in it, you are not protecting yourself from pride. You are not practicing godly caution. You are cooperating with the one who has the most to lose if your voice is finally fully released. Real humility doesn't sound like "I probably shouldn't say this," or "I don't want to seem like I think too much of myself." Real humility sounds like, I know with absolute certainty that this gift didn't come from me, which is precisely why I refuse to bury it in the ground out of fear of what people will think or what failure might feel like. The servant in the parable of the talents who buried his gift in the earth didn't do it out of laziness. He was explicit about his reasoning. He was afraid. He was afraid of the master's expectation. He was afraid of what would happen if he tried and failed. And the master, upon returning, called this response wicked, not misguided, not understandable. Wicked, because the gift was never his to withhold. It was entrusted to him for multiplication, not preservation. And the one who buries what God has given out of fear is not humble. They are disobedient in a way that has simply learned to wear the language of restraint. Let that sit in the deepest part of your spirit until it moves something. Now, here's the part that most people are not ready for, and yet it is the very revelation that will break the cycle completely if you are willing to receive it without the filters of religious conditioning or spiritual defensiveness. The reason your frequency has felt inconsistent, the reason you experience seasons of extraordinary clarity and then collapse back into fog, the reason your faith surges with real fire and then flatlines before anything has fully manifested, the reason you get so close and then inexplicably retreat, it's not because you lack discipline, though discipline matters. It's not even primarily because of spiritual warfare, though that is absolutely real and must not be dismissed. The root cause is something more interior, more architectural. It is because you have been attempting to broadcast at a frequency level that you have not yet built the internal infrastructure to sustain. You have been asking heaven for a voltage your current wiring cannot carry without damage. Think about a city that receives more electricity than its grid was designed to handle. The surge doesn't illuminate the city. It doesn't empower every home and business with abundance. It blows the circuits. It causes catastrophic damage to the very infrastructure it was meant to serve. And so heaven, in its extraordinary wisdom and its fierce commitment to your complete flourishing rather than just your momentary blessing, sometimes holds back the full release of a frequency, not as punishment, not as withholding, not as evidence that you're not chosen or not enough, but as protection. Protection from the weight of a signal that your current character, your current emotional infrastructure, your current relational patterns and internal architecture haven't yet learned to carry consistently without burning out. The expansion you have been demanding, the breakthrough you have been fasting and praying toward, may have already been granted in the Spirit. The decree may already be written, but God, who is not just concerned with your destiny but with your wholeness, is working on your capacity, not your calling. Your calling was settled and sealed and spoken over you before the foundation of the earth was laid, before Jeremiah was formed in the womb, before David was anointed in a field by a prophet who didn't even understand what he was doing. The calling is not in question. It has never been in question. It's your vessel that is still being shaped, still being strengthened, still being expanded to match the magnitude of what heaven intends to pour through you. And here is what you almost certainly did not expect to hear today, and what may be the most liberating and the most confronting truth in everything that has been said. The thing that has been blocking you is not the enemy, though the enemy is real. It is not your past, though your past carries wounds that need to be healed. It is not the people who betrayed you or abandoned you at critical moments, though that betrayal was real and it mattered. It is not the doors that closed when you were sure they would open, or the prayers that rose from a place of genuine faith and seemed to dissolve into silence. The thing that has been most fundamentally, most persistently blocking you is an unexamined belief, a belief so deeply embedded in your operating system that you may not have even consciously identified it, that you are still in a waiting period before God's declaration about your life can finally be activated, that you are on spiritual probation, that there is some invisible threshold of righteousness, of consistency, of spiritual maturity that you haven't yet crossed. And until you cross it, your frequency isn't permitted to function at its full intended strength. You've been living as though the promise has a prerequisite that you keep failing to meet. But worthiness was never the condition of your calling. Worthiness was settled at the cross, sealed by the blood, and declared complete by the resurrection. The condition that remains, the one living variable in the equation of your destiny, is not your perfection, it is your willingness. God does not use the qualified. He has never used the already polished, the already complete, the already arrived. He qualifies the willing. He equips the surrendered. He broadcasts through the ones who stop waiting until they feel ready and simply say, "Here I am. Use me. I trust you with what you've placed in me." The frequency he installed in you before you drew your first breath was never contingent on your flawlessness. It was always contingent on your surrender. This is where everything shifts, not at the end of your current season, not when the circumstances finally cooperate, not when you've completed one more round of healing or study or preparation. Now, this moment. Because the shift is never in the external, and it was never designed to be. The shift is always in the internal architecture of your faith. The moment you stop auditing your own calling, examining it from every angle, questioning whether it's real, checking it against what others think, and whether your track record justifies it, and simply begin walking inside of it, even imperfectly, even with trembling hands and a voice that doesn't sound as certain as you wish it did, even when the path ahead is obscured and the confirmation you wanted hasn't come yet. The moment you take the first step from within the frequency rather than toward it, something in the spiritual atmosphere responds. Not because you finally got it perfectly right, but because you finally stopped waiting to. Before you move forward from this moment, I want you to do something that requires your full presence and your full intention. Place your hand over your heart and feel it, that heartbeat that was placed in you by the one who knew your name before you were born. And declare this aloud, not as a formula, but as a sincere realignment of your will with what heaven has already decreed. I release every agreement I made with silence. I release every label placed on me by people who couldn't see what heaven sees. I break every soul tie draining my frequency without permission. I reject false humility that has kept me small and hidden. I declare that my calling is not on hold. I declare that my vessel is being prepared, not punished. I step into alignment now, not when I feel ready, not when circumstances confirm it, but now. I carry a frequency that changes atmospheres. I carry a signal that heaven is broadcasting through. And from this moment forward, I stop suppressing what God activated, and I walk in the full resonance of who I was created to be. I am not waiting for my season. I am in it, and I move forward in faith, in surrender, and in the unshakable certainty that I was chosen for exactly this moment in time. If this message confirmed something your spirit already knew, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below telling me what broke open for you today. The conversation you start might be the message someone else needed to receive. Stay in the frequency, stay in the faith, and remember, you were never ordinary. You were always carrying something the world needed.